Disclaimer. Twigs Cafe Radio and TwigsCafeRadio.com and its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions, statements, or claims made by the talk show hosts or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the station.
Cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
That's what we're doing. We're making this place your home. Twigs Cafe Radio. And welcome back, Jasikoff and Friends, 570-836-4771. Twigs Cafe Radio at gmail.com. You drop us an email off there. Go to our website, twigscaferadio.com. Click on any of the links and check out the live chat, which I've been trying to do a little bit more. Andy, I know.
I can't multitask. I haven't managed that yet.
We haven't totally... as you say, been doing the multitasking here. We're getting better at it, for sure. So, in studio right now is Anonymous.
Greetings, citizens of the world. Throughout history, the world has been controlled by big ideologies such as religion, socialism, and capitalism, to name but a few. These are all forms of slavery that have stopped our evolution and removed our freedom. Anonymous see these ideologies for what they are: systems of control. The time for change is now. No longer shall the people be oppressed by corruption. In case you are blissfully unaware of who we are, let me tell you this: we are not just a person. As people die, we are an idea, and ideas are immortal. We are justice, and justice cannot be silenced. We are the ones governed by no law. We are the ones who do not beg for justice to take its course. We are the ones your parents warned you about. We are the voice of the silent in the eyes of the blind. We are Anonymous. The tendency to relate past events to what is possible in the present becomes more difficult as the scope of the geopolitical environment changes. It is a useful thing, then, to ask every once in a while if the environment has recently undergone any particular severe changes, thereby expanding our options for the future. Terminology, let alone our means of exchanging information, has changed to such a degree that many essential discussions in today's communications age would be entirely incomprehensible to many 2 decades ago. As the social, political, and technological environment has developed, some have already begun to explore new options, seizing new chances for digital activism, and more will soon join in. It is time for the rest of the world to understand why. Everywhere you look, the world is suffering. Wars of aggression, companies dumping toxic waste everywhere, governments supporting the poisoning of our water. 1/3 of the world goes hungry, while the other 2/3 throws away 1/3 of their food. We are digging up all the coal and oil of our planet instead of researching renewable methods. Governments and corporations constantly lie, kill, and extort the entire planet's population, just for profit, where in America the richest 1% have 42% of the money. You shouldn't have to be convinced that the system we live under must come to a stop. If you want to alter the course that we're on, there's only one way to do it. We need to wake up that public. Even the most powerful weapons of war are neutralized if you reach the mind of the man behind the trigger. How do we wake the masses, you asked? Don't wait for someone to answer that for you. Get creative. Act like your children's and grandchildren's futures depend on it. Because they do. No one wants to believe that their kids are going to live under a military dictatorship. No one wants to see this coming. So most people put their head in the sand and do their best not to think about it. Those who don't always begin with one question: what can we do? The first thing you need to understand here is, our problem is psychological, not material. You have the means to take back your power, and you don't need a set of specific instructions. You don't need someone to hold your hand and explain your role. You don't need someone to give you permission. Are you going to push this out of your mind because it's uncomfortable? Or are you going to convert that discomfort into a driving force? No one can make that choice for you. I will tell you this much, Bo. If that thought itches in the minds of enough people, We will figure out a way to scratch it, and if that driven feeling is fully established in your heart, you will find a way to make it spread. The odds don't matter anymore. If you understand what we are facing, then you have a moral responsibility to do everything in your power to alter the course that we're on, regardless of the odds. It's only when you stop basing your involvement on the chance of success that success actually becomes possible. To strip the ill-gotten power of the financial elites and to bring these criminal cartels to justice will require nothing less than a revolution. The government is not going to save us. The government is completely infiltrated and corrupt to the core. Looking to them for help is completely arrogant. We have to actively work to wake up as many people as possible about what is happening and the direction we are heading. All revolutions originate from a shift in the mindset of the population, and no other meaningful resistance is possible without it. When an idea hits critical mass, it begins to spread on its own and spreads to all levels of society. We need more people in this fight. We need more people speaking up, making videos, writing articles, getting this information onto the national and international stage. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not ignored. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned. No rumor is printed. No secret is revealed.
And we've been following what you guys have been doing, not only out in Center County, but the group as a whole. John Adams, you're not the original John Adams, but you are the original John Adams, right? It does
in some senses, yes.
And the first thing I think of Anonymous is the anonymous group of hacking and being able to get into all the computers and right. Doing some good stuff. It depends on what side of the aisle you're on. Whether it all depends on what kind of perspective you have. But John, thank you for coming in, and the group. The rest of you guys are here, and you
Matt
took the ride
and Katrina,
up.
right? Matt and Katrina.
Fantastic. Yep. And you took the ride up from to Penn State, Center County, right?
Yes, sir.
And recently you just made your way out to Flint, Michigan. Tell us a little bit about your group, what Anonymous is, and then we'll get into Flint, Michigan. We're in no hurry today. I want to dig into everything you guys are doing, how you're shaking it up, and how you can help us shake things up in this area.
Well, to start with Anonymous, the way I like to answer the question, whether it be people asking, how do I join, or what are you guys about? Why do you wear the mask? It represents an idea, an idea that we're not going to stand by abuses of power, and that we'd like to lift our communities and ourselves up, so we do not forgive, we do not forget. And that holds very true to Flint, Michigan, where there is a clear case of government incompetence, selfishness, abuse of power, and the victims of that are an entire community that have been left poisoned. So, that right there encompasses what we stand for, and attacking the problem, but also at the same time building up the community. Anonymous will take a stand on many issues. Your viewers listening in, if they're intrigued by Anonymous, then they're already on their way to being anonymous. They can don a mask, don the title, and take it wherever they want. Now, whether other members or groups of Anonymous agree with that, that happens sometimes. But due to the ambiguity and, nature of the group, anyone can wear the title. And so in State College, we've been active for about 2 years now, year and a half, 2 years going on. And we found that Anonymous, to start, I'm a constitutionalist, first and foremost. I do a lot of work with Anonymous because these guys are on the ground, active. When we went to Flint...
When you say guys now, and guys and girls,
yes,
but do you find Anonymous more millennial types, or is there, old guys like me in Anonymous?
You have a wide spectrum. All races and ages, really are coming together. When we went out to Flint, we cooperated with Ohio militia, Ohio 3% militia, Michigan militia.
3%.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I love it. We have the shirts, the 3%ers out there, and most folks don't know what that actually means or not. And, we have the time to do this. What is the 3%ers? Because a lot of our listeners probably do know exactly what that means. But on the flip side of that, I think there might be a number. So when you see the 3%, how do you perceive that to be?
Well, as the story goes, is during the original revolution, building up to it, there were a lot of colonists that still supported the British, that knew they were being jammed up, hemmed up, that things weren't right. And when the revolution kicked off, it was roughly 3% of the population that took to arms and, stood against the British. And that's what bore what later became, our great country, was 3% of the population
would actually stand up. And it's funny, John, because when we do some events and I have the 3% shirts, and I remember 2 Marines coming up to me and they said, we need those shirts. And I said, wow, that's pretty cool. And he says, you know what? We know when we see somebody wearing those shirts, they're our friends.
Yes, sir.
And it's kind of a badge of honor, people. Yeah.
So it was really unique, actually. You bring that up to see Anonymous and 3% militia working in tandem. It doesn't happen quite often, but on this, we put political differences aside, ideological differences.
You got it. No. Welcome to Jasikoff Friends. That's what we do all the time here.
But no, we put all our differences aside, and we literally came in with about anywhere from 30 to 50 vehicles filled to the brim with water. Boots on ground, ready to go. And we drove right into the heart of Flint, got out, unloaded water, and started dispersing it to people. I know from State College, based on the rations that the people of Flint are getting, roughly a case of water a week, we delivered 51 cases via donations. Salvation Army worked with Anonymous State College. The local Weiss worked with us. And we were able to muster up, we're real grassroots, so we can't just roll out there with a moving truck full of water. But we got 51 cases and put those directly in the hands of families. So we bought 51 families, an extra week's worth of water, where now they can stack on top of their rations. And, for a little bit, we alleviated them. The people of Flint are hurting right now. They need water. You have to drive almost 40 minutes outside the city to find clean bottled water, to buy en masse. They're unable to shower. It causes irritations of the skin, so they're showering by poking holes in water bottles and using baby wipes and disposable washcloths, or things that people may not realize or think about, but they need it. More than water, they need volunteers, because water is pouring in from all over the country. There's just so many people affected by this. This is an entire community. It's every home has, this poisoned water.
I'm learning a lot too.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you have people on the ground and go into these things, and the ability to get out and tell the story, not from a political side, but from real life,
the human side. So there's a lot of frustration building in the community there. It took a toll on me, and I think a lot of others in my group, just how desperate it is. Flint right now resembles a third world country or a war zone. It's a ghost town. All the restaurants are shut down, because you don't think about it, but without clean water, they can't cook, so hair salons are out of business. They can't wash hair with this stuff. Anything that relies on water has shut down. Roughly 20,000 people have left Flint in the last year, and those were just the ones that were able to. Out there, they're facing record high unemployment. Their jobs were all shipped overseas, and then the factories were torn down. So they're in a real desperate situation out in Flint, and our group and others, we coordinated with Anonymous New Jersey, with members of Anonymous Cleveland, Anonymous Cincinnati, and then naturally Anonymous State College, and we rolled out, and I think walking away from it, we didn't expect it, but we will be planning future operations out to Flint or for people to get out there and involved. The one thing they asked of us, I heard time and time again, was to not forget them. They're 22 months away from one of the main lines that is corrupted, has been corroded, is seeping lead. The only possible fix that might fix it, they don't even know yet, is 22 months out. And that will not even establish the problem of the individual lines going into homes. That's where the core is. They can fix the main line all they want, but still families are going to be getting lead-filled water because of the individual pipings running into neighborhoods. So they are in a crisis that probably is going to last for multiple years. This isn't a hurricane or a tornado that went through. This is an ongoing... I foresee Flint's going to be suffering for many years. Now, on the flip side of that, I feel that Flint represents all that is American. Those people right now are coming together and are surviving through crisis. They're holding their heads up high. I have never encountered a higher class of people than I did in Flint. The community welcomed us with open arms, warm hearts.
And it's the community coming together. I just wrote that down. And this is and it goes to a total failure of government, and
at
yet
now
at all levels, and yet what you're saying too is it's the community, the people around you coming together. It's not big government coming in to help them, but it's the community that's really pulling themselves together.
And to add to that, they all know who's to blame, which is unique, I think. If you go to a random town in America and you start listing problems, the average person might, I've heard about it, I haven't heard about it. And Flint, the moment you bring up this issue, they all blame the governor. They blame their county planners, their county commissioners, the emergency management. They know who did them wrong. I mean, this was across the board. It was really startling to me to encounter so many people, that know who the culprit is. Flint's at a really important junction. The anger there is rising just as equally as the community spirit's rising. There's a sense of desperacy, though, where the moment another crisis happens and Flint's pushed out the news, that the donations will stop. If this country's allowed to forget about Flint, we're going to have another American city in flames. And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
And how many other ones are ripe? And I've overbooked here a little bit today, but that's okay. We have the time to talk. But I had asked another activist, and that's in Scranton, because I wanted you guys to kind of meet over the phones, because he's out there doing the same thing. And I'm writing this down. Scranton is at another juncture also. They're not maybe facing the water right now, but with the high taxes, with the corruption, with the nepotism, with everything everything that is going on, even in Scranton, it's the same thing. Is that going to be another town that's going to go up in flames, or something's going to just break loose one way or the other way here? So, Gary, welcome to Jasikoff and Friends and Twigs Cafe Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, I wanted to kind of introduce you guys through the radio. We have a group here called Anonymous, and they just reminded me a lot what you're doing. Also, you're out there, you're in the street, you're trying to make a difference. You're kind of new to Scranton at the same time. You're raising questions, and you're bringing up issues that really need to be addressed. Tell them a little bit about what you're facing in Scranton and why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay, I'm originally from New York City, so I moved to Scranton last year in August. I work in technology. I was doing a startup and also helping the local government with its technology, trying to bring it up to date. The push or the advertisement that they give is Scranton is trying to be innovative and progressive and move forward, which is all smoke and mirrors. But I didn't know this at the time, not in the area. So as I was working with them and talking to the people on ground and talking to people in government, they started openly telling me that Scranton is the most corrupt place in America. Now, of course, I thought they were exaggerating. I couldn't believe that it could be that bad. Maybe there's some corruption, but there's corruption everywhere. Little did I know that even the city councilman told me, yes, he openly told me that the city is controlled by a political society. So I started digging. I started doing research. I went to the budget. I went through newspapers. I did interviews. And after I put it all together, it created this narrative. It creates this story that is so staggering and is so upsetting that you would never believe something like this can exist in America. We're talking about the kind of corruption that exists in third world countries in Africa. Right. We're talking about a place where the entire city is in a grip of fear, where the local bar owner will tell you, yes, the government is corrupt, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm afraid for my life. They like to give you a list of things that they will do. There was one man named Frank who owns a window framing shop, and I would go to him. I would tell him, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to city council to announce them. And I created an organization called Save Scranton to expose it. I even told city councilman that what you guys are doing is wrong, and someone needs to speak out against it. And he flatly told me that, no, this is how things are done here. He's not going to do it, and to wish me good luck. So I did it. I created an organization, created the blog, put articles out there, got media attention, shake things up so severely that I started receiving threats, attempts were made on my life, etc. And of course, to everyone outside of this area, no one will believe it because it sounds too extraordinary and too ridiculous. Like, really? Really? But to the people who are here, they know. Like, when I tell them this, they say, yeah, that makes sense. Be careful. One guy even begged me not to do it because he immediately assumed that something would happen to me. It is that bad.
Now, your background is in the financial area a little bit, and I think that's where you really started digging in and starting to realize that Scranton is upside down when it comes to dough.
Very much so. The budget came out, and when I first looked at the budget, I couldn't believe that this was the actual budget. It's my first time looking at a government budget. The budgets that I usually looked at were corporations, public corporations, etc. So to look at a government budget was staggering because it was so bad. Like, it was one page was upside down, things couldn't be accounted for, the line items didn't match up, there were holes that were staggering, like a $30 million hole, like how these match up. They based it on projections, and obviously the pensions right now are 80% underfunded. So the pensions are 80% underfunded. I'm afraid to go bankrupt within a year or so, and they did not get to this point overnight. That means that they haven't been paying into the pensions for years, at least 15 years. So obviously their projections don't work. They don't know how to make projections and meet them. So why are we trusting these projections? So I only trust the actuals. So when I looked into the actuals, I said that the money that you're receiving in and the money that you're projecting doesn't match up. Why are you making these projections about the budget balancing when you don't have this money? In addition, how are you going to pay off your debt? You have $232 million in debt. Slap on that another $100 million because the pensions are underfunded. So you have over $300 million in debt. Then you have a population where 2/3 are in poverty. 38% live in fixed income. 20% live in a poverty line. And 7% unemployed. How in the world are you going to get enough taxes to make up for the shortfall, for this staggering debt? You never can, and they don't intend to. The plan is to take as much money, milk the city as much as possible, put it into the pockets of the government employees and the unions, and then let it explode, let it go to receivership, whatever happens.
That's exactly what they're doing in our area, Gary. Everything you just described, it sounds, I hate to say it, like business as usual when it comes to these crooks. Man, I didn't know Scranton was that bad. We'll have to definitely get in touch.
No,
again, what I always want people to do, I want people to come, because I know that everything I say, people are going to be like, yeah, he's trying to get views. He's trying to get, some traffic, because again, it's clickbait. I get it. Come. I have housing. I have rooms available. Come for a weekend. Stay. Bring a camera.
Hey, we'll bring a crew.
That's why I just wanted
we
you
can
to
do that for you.
To come
After
on
the show
quickly
here, we can.
Gary's going to be. I've asked him to come on to be a little bit more of a regular anyway, to come on the show and be our eyes and ears in Scranton, so that we start giving a little bit, Lackawanna and somebody coming on each week. Gary, what is your the website and the blog where they can go and just find out a little bit more information about you?
Oh, it's called Save Scranton. It's easy to remember.
Is that on Facebook?
Scranton. And it's on Facebook. It's on SaveScranton.com. We have a Twitter handle. It's all Save Scranton. So if you look at Save Scranton, that's us. We are also organizing. Like, we do have a plan. It's not just to expose the corruption, which is part of it. But in addition to that, it's to do something about it, because something can be done. The people need to mobilize. The people organize. They can effectively do something, because it's so staggering. It's so staggering that the little nudge will completely collapse this house of cards.
Gary, listen, thanks so much for joining us. I understand when we were talking before, you wanted to head down and meet Gary Johnson. So I guess we're gonna team up and head down to Philadelphia. I said I don't know how we're getting back. Well, you're getting back. I don't know what my plans yet, but I'll be seeing you Saturday, and we're gonna head down and you could meet up with Gary Johnson down at the Libertarian Convention in Philadelphia. But thanks for coming on. My main thing was I just just through the radio show, I wanted you guys to kind of meet, because you're both doing some really good work, on the ground and shaking things up in your community, which is really where it has to start, locally in each community. And I think that's what Anonymous has been saying, and we're going to get to all of that in the next segment. So, Gary, thanks for coming on, and you guys hang with us. You've been listening to Twigs Cafe Radio, Jasikoff and Friends, and we'll be back in a moment.
That much about
the younger generation have been really screwed. I mean, and now with social media and people are able to communicate a little bit better. If you had to rely on the same media that we had, if you had the ABC, NBC, and CBS, and if you had everything controlled, folks would be even more controlled. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we keep this internet
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Open, and these discussions are open, because otherwise everybody still would be in the dark.
Yep, we had state-run education, and our mainstream media is all we had when we were growing up. Nothing to open your eyes to, Thank God for the internet.
Give us a call, 570-836-4771, twigscaferadio@gmail.com, and we do have Anonymous and John Adams in studio, and they're waking us up to what they're doing in Center County. So where were we here? I mean, we were talking
Flint.
about
that Flint stuff was compelling.
The Flint stuff was compelling too.
We're hearing a lot about the political stories.
And I'm tired of the crap that I'm hearing on, like this political stuff, that they're blaming this one and blaming that one. At the end of the day, it's an absolute failure all over. And it's not the Republican, it's not the Democrat, it's government, Republican, Democrat, and all of them that have been in, this stuff should have been, certainly the light should have been shown on this many, many years ago.
Well, how do these people feel about their future, John? I mean, what are they got nothing to look forward to.
They're not trusting right now, and that's because they were told for a period of time that the water was safe. I met a teacher out of a community youth center. It was one of the last stops we made, and our camera died before I could capture this whole interview. I wish I could have. We missed it. But she had actually at a water fountain in the school, she showed us the city had declared it safe, and this was a year prior to them declaring it dangerous.
How can they do that?
And this teacher, Miss Sheila there, she had actually wrote on it, drink at your own risk. And she kept it up there because, it was a clear sign where they said it was dangerous, and the residents didn't trust it. And a year later, that drink at your own risk later became do not drink at all. When we actually poured water from the water fountain, they're scared of the water. She moved 10 feet back. She didn't want to come anywhere near it. It causes irritations, rashes on the hives, with pure basic handling, and I broke out in a rash.
We're not getting this aspect of the story, at least from what I've seen.
The town of Flint right now is a ghost town, except for piles of water in front of churches, in front of different group organizations, and that's what their daily life is right now. Is
going to get water,
is searching water. You'd think they're in a desert, which begs the question: we were able to provide for our troops overseas for such a long period of time in the middle of the desert, and here you have an American town right smack in the heart right there, and nothing. National Guard. From what I gather, and this was kind of a program in the works, they are working on employing the local youth to distribute water so that the National Guard can back out and that they can actually get the youth working again. Because, like I said, there's no restaurants open. There's, your local shops have closed down. Another aspect of this people aren't realizing is property value has been destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
You have families that have spent their entire lives growing up there, buying a home, owning a home. They can't leave if they want. They can't sell their house and leave. No one will buy it. No one wants to go where the water comes out brown and is poisoning in some cases. So it's where I see it going is that community is either going to build up together or it's going to probably become one of the biggest, modern wastelands in America. With what I saw.
And how many other towns are like this? I mean, because
I've seen that article that there's many Pennsylvania towns that have the same kind of poison.
And maybe that could be something that we silver lining is out of all this. Now there's a dialogue on the infrastructure. How old are these pipes? How secured are they? Because in all this hustle and bustle of growth, we're building up above the ground. How many people really think about the infrastructure that's underneath the ground? And it's failing. So. Who knows how many more areas will be impacted like Flint.
So listen, you guys are doing some other work that's near and dear to my heart. I understand that you're raising some hell in the courtrooms in Center County. Do I have that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting
in
there?
And that was actually what kicked off Anonymous State College and the organization out there. We have 3 jails within relative close proximity, all at different levels, state, local. But the town's population is quite small. I mean, these mega prisons are there for a reason. And I've lived in the area for about 3-4 years, and at 22, 23, I'm out at the bars hanging out and, talking with people. 3/4 of my youth, my population, my peers, all had criminal records. And this is in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania.
We're hearing it right here. And I know right here at Twigs, people are saying that the people that are working here, we're talking to Lori, just the owner of Twigs here, and she says that all the young people come and applying for jobs. It's like normal. Oh, I can't come to work this weekend because I have to go to jail. It's just like it's just like commonplace. It's not even like they're not even like ashamed of it. It's like this is just part of our lifestyle at this point. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right. The probation, the suspension of the licenses. This was everywhere. I mean, across all spectrums. And I started to wonder, okay, there's a bunch of criminals in town, or like the system needs to change. Our entire town is not filled with criminals. However, if you look at the records and what this courthouse in Center County, the county seat is in Bellefonte. So this is the main courthouse for Center County. You'd be amazed at how many people's lives are actively being ruined. And this small rinky-dink courthouse, they just churn people out left and right. So upon digging with it, we started with the real basic premise. Your prison for profit, Bellefonte, let's stop it. And that basic mantra and shining the light on the courthouse, they all started snitching on each other. They didn't know who we were yelling at, and next thing you know, it came out that our district attorney communicates regularly with judges via cell phone during trial. Clear violation of ex parte communications. This isn't 1 or 2 text messages. This is thousands per trial, where she's communicating not with 1 judge, not with 2, but with 3, if not all of them. We just have proof of 3 judges communicating with her. Best way I could put it to people, they're just talking about they're going to communicate. It's a small town. They work together. This would be the equivalent of 100 years ago if you were a defendant sitting in the courtroom, the prosecutor writing a note, folding it up into a paper airplane, throwing it at the judge. He reads it, crumbles it up, throws it away, writes his own note, throws a paper airplane back. And they do this thousands of times right in front of you. As a defendant, you're going to start to say, hey, can someone throw me a paper airplane? Like, what are we talking about here? What's so funny? And that's what has been going on.
And that's not funny. You're right.
Not just in high-profile cases, but in every case. Where in this small town, if you have a last name of a family that isn't liked has a rough history, you'll be persecuted for it. And they'll laugh about it in text message. They'll plot your demise. They cover each other's indiscretions. When this came out, our leaders would have us believe that this was isolated. I believe that this happens within an air of comfort. You don't just commit ex parte communications and operate in impropriety one time or without the approval of your peers. They get comfortable. And unfortunately for them, they thought they had our county wrapped up, that no one was going to question it. Everyone was afraid to speak out. And then we came on the scene. We held open carry rallies in front of our courthouse with the anonymous mask. I mean, we had AR-15s out there. It drives a point home. It made people were wondering, whoa, why are there guns in front of the courthouse? And we said, because they're breaking the law. They're screwing our futures, and we'll just show them we got guns, and things like that, different tactics. Mind you, while we had our guns, we also were cupcaking against corruption. So we offered everyone that passed by a cupcake, in good faith. But just to kind of disarm it, we're not scary. We got cupcakes. But so we've employed different tactics, and over the course of the last year, through various right-to-know requests, which I feel are integral to every citizen in this state, being able to file right-to-know requests gives you the ability to demand transparency from your government. And if you really wax, the Office of Open Records and your district attorneys and your county commissioners, you can get phone records and see if they're talking with each other out of line or, breaking different rules. Our district attorney was recently, through right-to-know request, she's been found that she was using fake Facebook profiles to entrap people, to entice them to commit crimes or whatnot. And through right-to-know request, this is coming out and coming to light. Through right-to-know request, we found out that our beloved district attorney, the love of my life, Stacey Parks Miller, she was taking drug forfeiture funds at an alarming rate. I mean, somewhere upwards of $400,000 are ending up in her office's pockets, and they're using it at their whim. And this is in her own words, that they pay for everything with drug forfeiture funds. So you have that going on. And, here recently, we just had an election in Center County where now dishonorable and disgraced Judge Lunsford, who was at the center of this text messaging scandal, he left office. The rumor is the Judicial Board of Conduct told him that if he ran a retention campaign, he would face charges and possibly lose his pension, or that he could resign or leave office, not run retention, and keep his pension. So they
this is what they do, Andy, right? The Judicial Review Board, and we can continue to hear about that.
Yeah.
Remember the candidate for state Supreme Court, state Supreme Court mentioned the same thing. It was a woman. I can't remember her name off the top of it, but she said that's exactly what the Judicial Review Board does. They act as a buffer to just sweep all these indiscretions under the rug, and to supposedly protect the judges and the courts, which is ridiculous at this point.
So, doing some digging, we were force-fed 2 candidates out of nowhere. Our judge resigned at the last possible minute, which is another issue we've been raising in Center County, the appointment process. We had 2 candidates enter the ballot, Ron McLaughlin and Katie Oliver. Now, Katie Oliver has ties to a firm called McQuaid and Blasco, and they are definitively tied to Second Mile and the Jerry Sandusky organization. What Judge Bradley Lunsford, who left, when he left, he had been a board member of Second Mile. He was there while Jerry Sandusky was committing his atrocities. Lunsford left, and Katie Oliver picked up his steed, and come to find out, she's a face of the same coin. These is the same exact group of people that have been in power since Sandusky's time.
Yeah, and that McQuaid Blasco law firm has been around State College for 50, 60 years now.
Right.
And they have run all the business of Penn State and pride themselves on Penn State, being Penn State's attorneys. And there's a lawyer there, and I don't know if he resigned. I was following the Penn State Sandusky Second Mile stuff a couple of years ago. I lost a little touch with it recently. Right. I don't know if he's still there, but a guy by the name of Wendell Courtney.
I do believe he resigned.
Okay.
But yes, he worked heavily with them, represented them, worked.
He was the linchpin of the control of that whole issue. And I'll go on record saying it, and if I'm wrong, they can come and sue me for defamation, and we'll fight it out in court.
So what we came to find out was Lunsford filed for retention on September 3rd. In clear violation of Section 993C, the Center County Election Board put 2 candidates on. Now, 993C states that in regards to primaries, there must be 2-month waiting period. They can't do it any later than that. And if you look at the calendar months, if you look at when Judge Lunsford put in his official, into the retention campaign, fell on September 3rd. That's documented. Now, if you go to the U.S. State Department and you were to look at when Lunsford put in his retention now, it has been changed to August 3rd, and we have the proof of that. So someone at the State Department, since we've made the claims that there was a violation of Section 993C, has altered our documents. This could only have happened at the State Department level.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Department of State. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And I think I read something about that. I think Matt wrote,
right.
published something about that on his page. Yeah.
And there is a clear manipulation of documents in regards to Center County elections going on. So we're actively working to expose this. We've raised this issue with our county commissioners, and they've responded cowardly. They've snuck in their answers unannounced, not on the agenda. They didn't even go on to put this woman on the minutes for the meeting. So there's no proof that they ever even covered the grievances we rose other than ours. I went in on March 1st, and I feel we absolutely devastated the commissioners with the information we brought to the table. We are calling for a resignment of our elections director out there. She is proven to be incompetent. She can't do her job if she has kids in their 20s coming in and telling her where she's dropping the ball.
Well, that's probably where that fudge paperwork happened, right through that office.
So at the very least, it's incompetent. But if it's more nefarious, then yes, this is full-blown manipulation of the people of the election cycle. I mean, clear up to our election director. And they like to use language to hide behind. So our county commissioners will say, well, that's up to the Board of Elections. And then the same breath, they're talking about themselves. So we do have where another big whistleblowing type thing we have is where the write-in nominees were supposed to be presented back in February, or a little bit before in January, by state law, as admitted by our elections director. They were not. And when we called them out about it, they did a quick hurry-up job and fixed it. Now, once again, we have an issue of dates being manipulated. We confronted them on March 1st, and I went on record and I said, hey, this isn't up there. You guys, don't have this information. This information's not up there. So we're looking at it a week later, going through our claims, making sure everything's double checked, and we were completely spot on. And come to find out, this information, wait a minute, it was introduced on February 2nd. We don't remember that. We didn't look for it wasn't there on February 2nd, or else we wouldn't have said it. And looking at the metadata, they created the document the day after we reamed them out for not having it and tried to hide it.
Well, listen, we're coming right up on the we're coming right up on another break for Sanity Check, and we're going to hold you over with Tea Party Mike, and he's just running a little late anyway, so that's going to be all okay. I do want to talk to you about, when we do get back here, though, is that how the media is handling everything, and are you getting the exposure that you want? So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, as always, what we wanted to do was, we're going to do this now. Okay. Instead of I figured she was going to just. I figured she was going to bring us into Sanity Check, but she's going to. We have a young lady that just wanted to come in as always, and we've been telling folks, right, Lori, stop on in. But we had a young lady that wanted to come in and do a little singing for us, so she's going to take us into the next break, and you hang with us. You've been listening to Twigs Cafe Radio. When we come back, it'll be Sanity Check.
Okay, go ahead, honey.
There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name. Oh, B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name. Oh.
There you go. It doesn't get any better. That's how we're ending Sanity Check. Hang with us, and we'll be back.
It's
That's what we say. How do we sleep while them beds are burning? Welcome back. Twigs Cafe Radio. Sanity Check. Libertarian Lou. Tea Party Mike in about 10 minutes. How you like that? That's fantastic. X is on the line. We have Anonymous in studio. Andy's here. And I got to tell you, man, you guys are telling us a heck of a story. And it's what you're doing on the ground just in Center County and Penn State. And it's really phenomenal. One of the questions I had for you, John Adams, by the way, great name right there, Andy.
It looked great on that ballot.
John Adams from Anonymous and the rest of your crew is here with you. Is that how is the media handling this? Are you're breaking these stories? You're exposing what's going on in the courtrooms. You're bringing out the corruption and the nepotism, the cronyism that has plagued, I think, the whole country, Andy. I think
that's what I was thinking.
Everywhere we look, everywhere, every time, every
and for every
turn.
There's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, and thank God you guys are active out there. But there's probably 66 other counties where you could have a lot of similar stories that people need to expose.
Right. So what is happening with the media? And one of the reasons, obviously, we started the Independent Gazette and doing our shows is that we felt here that we weren't getting adequately covered. And the stories, it's just been controlled.
Right.
It's been controlled media. Are you finding the same there, John?
Well, what we found at the start was that when starting into looking into the election fraud was that we couldn't find any of the answers we were looking for that should have been reported by the media. And when I say election fraud, it may not be in the terms that people usually think. I'm not claiming that anyone's vote isn't being counted. Well, yeah, we are. But that your vote's going missing or being altered or anything like that. Nothing screwy with the voter IDs. What's happening is we have a pattern emerging where elected officials resign at the last possible minute. They quit. They relocate. And in doing so, they do it either after an election cycle, right before, when there's no time, to introduce anyone into the ballot. And real conveniently, that leaves the opening for the appointment of, whoever is deemed fit, whether it be by a vacancy board or the board of supervisors, whoever oversees that position. And so when we started looking into it, we noticed an alarming rate of resignations that resulted in appointments. And then we really started looking into it, and the media had nothing. Where public figures are resigning, they're quitting, they're being ousted for office for not even living there. The media is not reporting any of it. So I feel our media's dropped the ball. I was telling you during break there, one way we found to confront that was online. Our Center Daily Times, our Channel 6 or Channel 10 News. They'll run with a story that's completely useless to, the people and like a fluff piece. And so what we do, being anonymous, and we got the computer and the internet on our side, we can flood an article with, legitimate activists and whatnot who say, hey, do your job, report something. What about this election fraud? What about these stats? What about that? Why aren't you asking these questions? And occasionally, about 50-50 of the time, if they feel it's juicy enough, they'll run with it. In this case, it took them about a week and a half, but they did run with the election fraud. I got the front page of the Center Daily Times paper. Other than that, are they doing their job and investigating their claims? No. If you read through the stories, they're going to be content with us doing all the legwork, and they're going to say the entire time that nothing's wrong. So I feel that the media is failing people. That's a major issue, I think, where if the media were doing its job, we wouldn't have to be doing so much legwork to wake people up and inform them. We could actually attack and, fix these things. But the lack of media coverage is disheartening at times. Like I told you, I'm ready to go yell at Channel 6, Channel 10, the whole bunch in our county.
And I think even like what we're doing, and I've said this before, is that we're able to hold the media to their feet to a fire to a certain extent, just like you guys did. I mean, I remember, and I don't want to get, because we've talked about this before, but I remember specifically the local TV station here covering a rally and reported that there were hundreds of people there. And we had the same video, and there was 26 people there. And what was more disturbing was, John, was the fact that the way they cut the video, they cut it real tight. You see the little feet walking, and it looked like it could have very well be hundreds of people. But when we sent the same feet and showed the same video and shown, listen, there's 26 people there, when you do something that is, we were covering an event that was was a good event. It was helpful to the community. And if you manipulate something that's so helpful, what happens when you really want to manipulate something or make the news something that it's not? Right. And that's where the danger really starts coming in.
I agree.
We got X on the line. X, we have Anonymous in studio with us, and man, they're doing some unbelievable work. And once again, on our earlier shows here, X, we had this is another a young group. They're all millennials. We had another guy that. Save Scranton, he was on, and another millennial that's really trying to make some differences. And I think they've just had it, and they're starting to realize also that there's something terribly wrong with what's going on in America today. And on top of all of that, we don't have a media that's willing to report on this, X.
Well, no. I mean, the question is, they're never uncomfortable questions for the system itself. They're always who to blame, but it's never the whole system's to blame. No one ever wants to get to the fact that it's the actual foundation upon which we're building things that has the termites. They want to focus in on the roof, the leaky roof, a broken window, and the answer is, well, let's get deeper into this. And that's really where this stuff starts to break down, because, again, you want to fix things. You cannot build something on a foundation made of sand. And that's the problem with the system. It's made of sand.
And in this instance, it's the media being in bed with the government, and this is exactly what happens in the courts. I mean, they are the protection arm. The media is the protection arm of the government, and if our First Amendment means anything in this country, it means the media is sheds the light on these issues and holds the government accountable. And we have a total breakdown in this country. In that
and then the media is in bed with the connected, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's the policing, whether it's the district attorneys, and they're all working together to cover their own butts also. And unless there's this hyper transparency, this is why we fall into the.
Thank God for the internet. That's all I keep saying.
Well, here, let's just circle back to something pertinent to right now. Let's look at Flint, Michigan, and the water problem that's going on there.
Well,
are we really supposed to believe that those who work for these water systems, not just at Flint but across the entire country, have not been arguing or sending memos or warning people about this sort of stuff for maybe decades? And then the idea is, who's the person, when warned about this stuff, has let it slide? We're going to find out, and I'm assuming it would probably be with groups like Anonymous, because it's certainly not going to come from an honest government, that there might be memos going up to the head of the EPA warning about these type of crises, and them not bringing it to anyone's attention. Now, however, the EPA has plenty of time to go after some rancher who's storing water on his property,
right,
or moving a river, or a person that bulldozes a pond and now it's classified as a wetland. But want to talk about the water that's in some of these cities? I mean, I don't have to be a rocket scientist to tell you that years ago in Washington, D.C., the water was so horrible you couldn't even drink it out of the tap.
Well, these guys just came back from Flint, Michigan, and they were telling us on the prior show here some of their recounts of what they saw was absolutely horrid, X, and it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable what the government has gotten away with, and then yet people still turn to that same government to try to fix what they created.
And the flip side to X's point there, or to complete the point really, is how many of those people who sent the memos up the chain then became the target of a disciplinary action and were terminated from their employment, and then tried to bring a First Amendment whistleblower lawsuit, and then had that squelched and squashed, and got themselves thrown out of court. So that's the full scope
think
of
about
it.
This. A person that allowed for this stuff to go forward without doing something different, something about it, is no different than a person walking over and taking an eyedropper and putting lead in a child's water.
I agree.
And this again will prove how the system works, and that is these massive, massive crimes are not committed by the Charles Mansons of the world. The massive crimes are committed by those in positions of governmental power for the most part. There are some in the private sector, but primarily within the government sector that are allowed to inflict their crimes upon the populace without there being any accountability. You know, I want to know who are the people that 5 years ago, the guy's in retirement now, and you've got an anonymous memo that says, look, I've been writing to you, and this is 7 years, and the water's bad, and we need to do something about it, and it went to some guy's desk, and he put it to the side.
Yeah, you're right.
They were running, they're running the city of Baltimore, and it got to the mayor, and she didn't do anything about it. Or she realized that when they told them how much the bill would be to fix it, she couldn't go back to the teachers union or to the police union and say, sorry, we don't have enough money in the budget, we've got to put in new water pipes, because above the police and above the school, it's probably more important to make sure that we have clean water and places where our poop goes when we flush the toilet. That's the beginning of civilization. At least the Romans were smart enough to realize fresh water to Rome is the basis of their society, not about the police force, not about the other spiraling municipality duties that go above and beyond anything you would ever imagine.
Yeah, and it's and that's exactly what these guys were talking about earlier. So, John, before we head into another break and we have some other folks coming on air, where are you going from here, and what are your plans to do as you move forward? What are some more of your escapades?
Well, I'll be working with Andy, I think, here, and I'll use this time and announce that I'm going to be running for the 5th Congressional District for U.S. Congress.
Fantastic. So, who are you running against?
I guess
Thompson.
Glenn Thompson.
Glenn Thompson. He's a current office holder.
He's an interesting guy. Nothing against him, but he's had a lot of time in office and really nothing notable. He's just gotten comfortable, I think. He's not rocking the boat, especially with what is happening in his district. We need someone in there that can provide teeth to get to the bottom of these issues. I have county commissioners, their lawyers, etc., on record saying, well, this is above my pay grade. So I guess we'll try to get someone, myself, we'll try to get a higher pay grade and get to the bottom of this out there, because right now government incompetence in Center County is at an all-time high. The people there's a complete failure to represent the will of the people, and I'm sure that this is going on in many areas. I think Harvard had ranked Pennsylvania as one of the top most corrupt states. We had Gary there talking about Scranton, so these issues, I'm sure, are plaguing the 5th Congressional District all over. The appointment process, that we're questioning, and the whole 9 yards, judicial corruption. I think candidates needed to get to the bottom of this. We could go try to fix, the world from D.C. or look to D.C. to fix the rest of the country, or et cetera. But until we start fixing our own backyards and our own communities, this problem is only going to spiral out of control and grow further, I think.
If it hasn't already.
Right.
And something else that I think is relevant or very prevalent, especially like in the center counties, a lot of these state reps seem like they've been there not only forever, but they've run very much unopposed.
Right.
What's the prognosis of maybe having some people even run against them, just to have people running against them? I'm sure you're probably outreaching to that now.
Yeah.
Who?
Like Matt Grove here. This guy's sharp. These guys are doing a lot of research. Boy, they are on the ball out there.
Yeah, and I just want to welcome Tea Party Mike to us. He's not always on. Mike, we're going to get you on here in a minute, but in studio with us is a group called Anonymous, and you probably heard a little bit about them, but they're doing some fantastic work here in Center County and over by Penn State, and they just returned back from Flint, Michigan, and some of the stuff that why don't we just end with that, and just so that X and Mike, because we're going to need to take a break, just you just have another minute or two here, John Adams, by the way.
Yes.
Just let them know what you actually saw in Flint, Michigan. I think it's worth repeating. Is it not, Andy?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, like I said, right now the situation's quite desperate. That doesn't reflect, as negative as the city is. I mean, to start, it's a war zone. It looks like a third world country. Buildings are abandoned, falling apart. Storefronts are closed. If you want to do any shopping in Flint, there's like maybe a liquor store or two open, but that's about the extent of your shopping. It is a ghost town.
No restaurants are open.
No restaurants are opening.
Hairdressers.
Something over 20,000 people left the city within the last year, and those were the ones that could. Property values have diminished. There is it's a different society out there. These people are waking up and they have to go search for water as, if they're in the desert looking for an oasis. And, you have people that can't drive the distances or can't travel. And, this is now a way of life for them where every day they have to go seek out clean water. I know coming in and out of Flint, we had to drive for roughly 40 minutes before you could access clean bottled water en masse, to try to get in there. The National Guard is only providing 1 case of water a day. According to residents, the Red Cross has not been in town for roughly 6 weeks. A majority of the water donations are coming from churches and individual grassroots groups right now. They need baby wipes, adult washcloths, because they have no way to shower. I was told countless times that, one of the ways they found was to poke holes in the water bottles to conserve what little water they had and, have the semblance of a shower. A majority of the children are coming down with lead poisoning. There are free lead check clinics all over the city, which is a discouraging sight when you see signs everywhere announcing, hey, get your lead levels checked here. I mean, to see that in an American city is disgusting to me. So the children are really suffering. Beyond that, it'll be 22 months before a possible main line could be put in. And even that main line, if it is fresh and everything does go well, will not help the people of Flint. That is just the start to fixing the problem. The people of Flint, almost every single individual pipe going into the homes has been a victim of infrastructure failure. So they are years away from having their city running on clean water completely again.
It might actually be a real strategy to basically buy out everyone there and abandon the city.
I'm thinking of Centralia, Pennsylvania, as I hear this.
That's actually, in talking with different militia, Michigan militia and 3%, that is honestly the mindset of the people is they're about ready to just call it quits, kick us out of here, buy the city off and abandon it, because as it is right now, it's not livable. The one thing that I was requested of multiple times in speaking with residents, we spoke with church members, National Guard, we went to the hospital and talked with doctors, we talked with private business owners and citizens, and they have a Flint Water Crisis Museum actually up, and we spoke with the ladies out there. The one thing that people are asking and that they're really scared of is that the moment another crisis happens, the country will forget about Flint. That goldfish attention span will switch somewhere else, and the water's going to run out. And, as it stands, these people, they're in a desperate situation. But I want to reiterate, I may say desperate. However, that's just the situation. That is not reflective of the people or their willpower or their strength.
And the community. You said the community. And once again, it's the community coming together. It's not government coming in and bailing them out. It's the community themselves bailing themselves out.
And some millennials from State College, Pennsylvania, throwing 51 cases of water in their cars and taking a trip out there.
Our group, Anonymous State College, we do work with other states and other city groups. So, we went out with Anonymous New Jersey, Anonymous Cleveland. Members of Anonymous are awakened Cincinnatians. And we joined up with different militia groups. We had about a 30-plus vehicle convoy and about 200 people roll into Flint this Saturday. And, we delivered water door to door, person to person, and got it out there. That's a drop in the bucket. They need...
But it must have felt good.
It helped. When you look at the numbers, we did individually help families.
Right.
Were we able to help them all? No. But this is where at least we can get the message out there, and people who may not be aware of it can now get involved.
And I think that I do have to take a break here. But the thing is that I think you telling that story, I don't think people realize that. It basically has shut down the city, because you can't have a restaurant, you can't have a hairdresser, anything that has anything to do with water is done, and so the community is shot down. So how do people get a hold of you? And we're going to have you back again. Right. You know you guys are going to be regulars on here, so
they can find us if you search Facebook for Anonymous State College. You can also find us on YouTube. We do have videos up from our Flint trip. Still have a bunch more to add. But you can find us on YouTube as well as Anonymous State College, and reach out to us that way and follow our stuff. We're trying everything we can.
John, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to take a break. You listen to Twigs Cafe Radio, Sanity Check. When we got